I'm Patrick Lugo, author, illustrator, comic creator, and art director for Kung Fu Magazine.
I'm Kurtis Fujita, comic book creator, also a Kung Fu instructor.
The Comics Fu Show, where we stand at the crossroads of comics, Kung Fu, and all kinds of crazy pop culture.
Hello, I'm Sifu Kurtis Fujita with Tiger Crane Kung Fu. I just wanted to let everybody know that we do have an online program that we're utilizing for students who are in other states, other time zones, other countries. It's a unique program with multiple components that really help you learn Kung Fu and Tai Chi at home. So we have different components. The first part is, of course, Zoom classes. We have online Zoom classes that meet throughout the week for Kung Fu and Tai Chi. So we record the Zoom classes, and we have an archive of videos for you to access at any time, anywhere, as long as you have an internet connection. So if you missed a class, you can go ahead and follow along and check it out. Or if you want to remember something that was mentioned in class, you can go back and watch the rerun. It's an archive. So these are all the different components that make our unique online Kung Fu program. If you're interested, feel free to visit our website, www.tigercrane.net. Thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to hearing from you, and take care. Hello.
We're back.
We're back. How you doing?
I'm well, Kurtis. Welcome back. How are you?
Good. It's been a minute. I think, what was the last one? Was it WonderCon? Was the last time we were talking about things on Comics Fu Show?
You know, there was a WonderCon report, but I think we might have had the Jeff Johnson interview pop in somewhere.
Yeah.
Right before the summer, the hot and hectic summer kicked off.
Definitely.
I think that might have been our last little get together.
I think so. How have you been?
Oh, quite busy, but I don't think that's anything that's different. You know, I like to think of my life these days as juggling flaming axes.
Nice.
You know,
yeah.
I'll leave it to the imagination how you get those axe heads on fire, but
yeah.
You know, it's so far it's fun and creative.
Yeah,
you know?
Definitely. Very good.
And I'd ask you, how about yourself, right? But isn't that kind of what this whole episode is about?
Yes, definitely. So, been busy like you as always. That's like one of the many things we share in common. But big thing, of course, is got back from Comic-Con. So I'm back in town from San Diego Comic-Con. My first time going back to San Diego Comic-Con since the pandemic hit. Missed last year, so this is my first time back. Had a really good time. A lot of interesting things I got to see and experience, and I'm here to share it. So
excellent. So before we get started, I wanted to ask your opinion on the slight change of opening bumpers that we had for this particular episode. Did you notice that?
Yeah, it looked great. And I also liked the Lucy Veloz. I like that's doing well, right?
That's exactly kind of what I was talking about when I was setting you up for that, right?
Yeah.
The little what is that? What do I call it? I call it the it's crowdfunder / the high flying princess, right? Lucy Veloz, the high flying princess, is my little middle grade chapter book that I illustrated over the year of 2020, right? Devoted a ton of time just creating these like super high-tech sci-fi fantastical drawings for young readers, you know, for kids 6 through 8 who want to read stuff on their own. It's been a pretty well received. It was a well received Kindle book, but I want to have those hard copies for next Comic-Con, you know, something for those young visitors. But yeah, I'm excited about that. We're at the 55% mark, and we just released a few premium tier backer rewards that folks can check out at that link below.
Excellent. And it's on crowdfunding, right? This is your
yes, crowdfunder. They're an alternative to a new alternative in terms of crowdfunding platforms. So it's an interesting. It's got the Kickstarter vibe, but it's also got a little bit of a Shopify, Etsy vibe. So there's a lot of possibilities you can go there and you can get copies of A Tiger's Tale or some of my other books as well.
Nice.
So it's fun to try out new platforms. But yes, so that said, what say we jump straight to, well, here, I mean, I wish we had a soundboard, you know. You mentioned the air horn.
That's the next level. That's the next level.
Right. So I'll just go with this. Right. Let me ask a Kung Fu master, how was San Diego Comic-Con?
It was awesome. You know, just to kind of preface, right? I mean, the big thing, you know, if you're into the whole pop culture genre and everything that goes on at Comic-Con, the big thing was that because of the writer's strike and after strike for actors, Hollywood, as far as the writers, you know, actors and people like that, weren't there this year for the first time. And so there was a little bit of concern, I think, from everybody whether or not it was going to be, you know, as fun or as busy or if it was going. I'm happy to report it was awesome. You know, I mean, it's always nice when you get to have them there and, you know, participate and have the great Hall H panels if you're willing to do the long wait to get in. But even without that, it was still Comic-Con. A lot of people there, a lot of great art, a lot of neat offsites, lots of cool stuff. The energy was like super high this year, so I really enjoyed it. I think everybody was ready to get back out there and enjoy the con. So
yeah, I heard wind of like a interview with a vampire themed outdoor setup at one space.
Yeah, let me. I actually went to that. Let me see if I can. While you're on the subject, let me see. I'm going to try and throw this onto my computer. I went to it, and it was pretty cool. It was in the gas lamp, and it was based on the you know, if you're familiar with the series and the book, it was based off of the actual the Theater of the Vampires. You know, because you know, in the story, and so they had this whole like experience. We waited in line for like 4 hours or 5 hours. Hey, Pops, what's up, Pops?
What's up, Pops?
Long time to see.
From out of the shadows, another one arrives.
Great to see you. Yeah. I haven't been in touch with Pops in a while because we've just been so busy working on fulfilling our crowdfunder stuff and all those kind of things. But great to see you, Pops. Thanks for coming. Glad
you can make it, Pops. Talk about hot and hectic, right? It's hard to believe it's August.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. No, definitely. And the interview with the vampire, I can't pull it up right now, so I'll just tell you about it. It was cool. It was really cool. It's basically they recreate a scene from supposed to be New Orleans, and you walk through and you go do all these different things, and you know, you first drink the elixir of immortality, which is essentially basically, you know, blood. But what it was like pomegranate juice, and it was pretty neat. And then you go from there. You're in this bar. The bar gets you know, taken over by the authorities. The authorities come in, and then from there you go out into the streets of New Orleans and walk around. And so that was pretty cool. And you go through all these different installations and meet different people and different characters, the Mayfair witches and things like that. And then it ends with you meeting the vampire Lestat. Now that's my one gripe, is at the very end when you're leaving, the whole time you're walking down this, it's supposed to be like an alleyway. And the whole time they're talking about, oh yeah, you know, Lestat's at the end of the street, you know, be careful, Lestat. And then you get there and it's broad daylight and Lestat's talking to you in broad daylight, which totally goes against the whole vampire thing. So that kind of took me out of the experience. But other than that, it was pretty cool.
I thought he developed sun resistance when he drank some blood from the elder or something like that.
Did he?
I have a I only read the first book, but I
Uh-huh.
did read the comic book adaptations of the whole
Okay.
series that were published in the 90s.
Uh-huh.
And I have a vague recollection that by the time he got to Egypt, he could be out in the daylight.
Okay, maybe that was like, here I'm going to show you. I pulled it up. This is, can you see it moment on the screen? This is it. So
Right
this was
on.
outside. That's my wife, Diana, and myself. And it was like one of the first things we did. So that's outside of the theater, the vampires. They had like all these posters and things. And the neat thing is at each turn you got a little souvenir. So this was the Mayfair, which is the Mayfair talismans. So you get to go to that shop, and you get some things to practice witchcraft, basically. And then those were some posters on the wall. There was an artist drawing, the street scene, and there were some people practicing, the arts, as it were. And then at the end, there's one of the vampires that was outside, and she poses. She actually takes two poses. The first one, she's looking at you, and then the second one, it's like looks like she wants to bite your neck, basically. And that's right. That was me with her. And then there's the Mayfair talismans. You can see like the front of the shop. And that. I'm gonna stop that there. That was just one part. That was that installation, that offsite. This is really nice,
Yeah, I saw. I think it was maybe The Beat that posted a video of it, and I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of the immersive art. Having done my share of installations and the like. So, but can you imagine having the Vampire Lestat money to set up your own immersive shop? I mean, Kurtis,
totally.
can you imagine the Shadow Ghost Queen set
I
up
mentioned that all
with
the
that
time.
monorail?
The funny thing is, so we were there, and the woman who was the head Mayfair witch, she's supposed to be like a Southern belle, and Louisiana, New Orleans, so she's supposed to speak French. And I think I messed up her game because she went up to us and she was talking, and she introduces herself, and she's like in this Victorian dress, and she comes up to me. Yes, I'm so and so Mayfair, of the Mayfair family. And so I played along, and I know a little bit of French, so I just went to her and said, "Oh, enchanté." And you literally saw her eye like twitch and her break character for a second, because she was like, "Holy crap, this guy knows French. What am I going to do?" And then she kind of just went on autopilot, and she went back to her script. Like she just was like, "Okay, back to the script." So I said, "Enchanté," and said a couple things in French. And then she goes, "Yes, of those Mayfair witches," and then just went back onto her script. So it was pretty funny. It was just fun to mess with her.
Your chi was too strong for her, Kurtis.
Exactly. So
We all know that you come from a long line of vampire hunters. So.
Yeah, exactly. The Eurasian vampires. But I'll show you guys a few more pictures. Some pictures. I took some pictures of the floor, and you'll probably notice some of the people that were at the event. Let me see if I have it here. Here we go. All right. So this was I took some photos at the quite a few photos at the event. So this was first preview night, right? If you know Wednesday, you go to their preview night. They open it for like 3 hours. So this is pretty cool. Mm-hmm.
So you got in preview night because one of our other friends of the show with whom I was speaking with didn't make it to preview night. So I've been, as you know, Kurtis, I've been living vicariously through my network of friends.
Yeah.
Getting like a kind of a 4-dimensional image of Comic-Con, but
totally. We were talking. It's like Rashomon. Like everybody has a different piece of the puzzle, right? And you put it together, and you have an idea.
Yes, excellent.
Yeah, so that was the main hall.
Very thematic reference there.
Yes.
I see Blue Beetle. Very encouraging.
Yeah, very. I mean, it's really cool to see these costumes up close. I think this is a better picture. I mean, just you look at the detail. It's like, oh my gosh, just insane. And this was the first year DC was back. Last year, DC didn't have any floor space, which was sad, So this was cool. They had this on hand. They had the Aquaman. I think there's probably some variations. This is for the new Aquaman. I mean, just the detail of the gauntlets. And, I've been going to cons for all, so I finally realized, like, it's important to take detailed pictures instead of just, like, one big one. So I was taking pictures of, like, the gauntlet, and
the scale mail, like, it always bothered me that the MCU never bothered with Captain America's scale mail. So I feel vindicated that Aquaman kind of brought it in.
Definitely. I mean, just it's great. It's great to see that, up close. This was for Sanlan, Akira Toriyama, the creator of Dragon Ball, his series. So that was
So were
there.
these like scale model maquette style
Oh yeah,
presentations?
yeah. This was like live. I mean, this was like life size. And this was a creepy one. I mean, creepy but cool. It was like a life size bust of Chun Li. I mean, it even had like hair you can see, and took a picture of the side. That was really impressive. I mean, I would never probably be able to afford some of these things, but they're great. And then they had some gorgeous Street Fighter. These are like maybe like this tall, maybe like 20 inches tall or whatever. These were great Street Fighter characters. I mean, look at the gi. You can see the fabric and the texture.
Oh, yeah. I'm just like, admiring. I'm just like, imagining trying to wear those beads around your neck, like, I
Totally.
mean,
There's Birdie from lots of games, but Street Fighter Alpha, he's from there, so that was cool. That was a bust as well. And they had some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I was surprised to see this character. His name's Rolento. I haven't seen Rolento that much in a figure form. And again, it just gorgeous. Honda, the sumo wrestler.
oh yeah. He
Yeah.
was a go-to character on the rare occasion that I actually played.
Oh, totally. The 100 palm slap.
Yes, classic.
And there's Fei Long and Blanca. I mean, I like the staging too. I mean, they put those two figures together, but they made them sit on that crate and made it look like it was really they were present, in a scene. Bison, gorgeous. And then they have just tons of Gundam things. But I like too is you get to see these things really presentable, well lit. They had this huge one. I mean, that's my wife and I in front. It was so tall. Here you can actually see the scale. I mean, there's my wife in the bottom right-hand corner taking the photo. I mean, it's just huge.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Not all of us can devote, the budget and the space to like these kind of dioramas. So
Oh yeah, I'd rather just take the picture. I mean, my gosh, I got enough stuff. And like this is cool. He's launching, the projectiles, and they have, that's like regular action figure size. There's some more there. And this was cool. Of course, they had the samurai Darth Vader, which is pretty nice.
very, very awesome.
Can't go wrong with Ultraman.
Also a classic.
Okay, now before I go to that one, let me go back. All right, so I'll preface the point of reference because it's a little cheeky. So, if you're familiar with the Grand Theft Auto video games by Rockstar, there's a food franchise in those games called Cluck and Bell, and it's a fusion of like Taco Bell and KFC, basically. And so in the game, that's where you eat the food. You eat the food, you get your energy back, and you also get a beverage called E-Cola, right, which is the soda. And when you drink E-Cola, you get your energy back. So one of the restaurants, I forget the name of them, but they actually got the license to do a pop-up restaurant. They converted their restaurant into a version of Cluck and Bell. And they had these guys in the street promoting it, and they were also selling bottles of E-Cola. And I bought the E-Cola. And so you can see on the front of the shirt, it says Cluck and Bell. Let me preface this. It's a poultry restaurant, okay? And then as they turn around, you can see the adage on the back, the slogan.
Taste the rooster.
exactly, the rooster. So that was pretty cool. And then I went and I actually bought one. I was like, how cool is this? So I actually bought a bottle of it and had it that night. And it was like a fusion of Mr. Pibb and Pepsi. But it's pretty good. Yeah, and then
Made all the more satisfying by the immersion once again, right?
Exactly. I just had to kind of move it here because it was out of order. So then this was like these are all throughout the con. This is towards the end. More of the floor stuff. There's Naruto. This was cool. The Dragon Balls. They were selling them as like basketballs with all the different stars on them, which I thought was really neat.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I always love stuff like that at the con. Like one year I got wine stoppers that were themed for Game of Thrones. So it had House Stark, it had like a silver, wolf, and then it had House Lannister, and it was one with a lion. I like stuff like that you can actually use.
Yeah, I've had a pretty decent set of Game of Thrones coasters, right?
Nice.
So you can pick your houses while you pick your drink.
That's great. Yeah, that's kind of fun. I mean, then you don't feel completely guilty that you bought it, because you're using it. I mean, there was a huge zombie Galactus, which I thought was amazing.
Essential for every person's household, I'm sure.
Exactly. What do you get for the person who has everything? This was amazing. This was like maybe half my height.
Akuma from Street Fighter. I mean, just look at the details. I mean, isn't that absolutely stunning?
Oh
Just,
man.
yeah, I just love seeing
Yeah.
stuff.
It's just like the sculptural work, you know, the whole presentation.
Oh yeah, I mean, look
Just
at the
the
fingernails. Even the fingernails have, like are kind of, frayed and, you know, gorgeous. And then they had a exhibit. They had like almost like a small exhibit there, Vinland Saga. And if you had a chance to see it, the book, but there's also the anime it's on Netflix now.
I've watched a couple of episodes, and the book has been recommended to me many times.
Yeah, I
Um,
absolutely love it.
have you read it?
I haven't read it. I mean, I watched all the anime, so I should probably double back with the manga. The anime is amazing, so I can only imagine the book. And yeah,
I've read, and in fact, one of my colleagues, Lex Fajardo, who writes the graphic novel Kid Beowulf, he's kind of like his niche is like translating the classics. He does for like the European classics what I'm doing with the Tiger's Tail. So where I'm
Nice.
using Kung Fu mythology, he's using Beowulf and Charlemagne. And so he was really impressed with Vinland Saga, and this is the guy who has read like Beowulf in some of the older translations. So
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, they had the original art there, so that was cool. I mean, I've seen original comic book art, but I really haven't seen much original manga. So to be able to see that, just great. I had to take some photos. And look at that! Isn't that gorgeous? I mean, it's grotesque and gorgeous, but
I also heard Junji Ito had some art on display. Is that true?
yeah, I didn't make it there, but there was a whole display. I think it was at a gallery or something. I know somebody who got to see it. Our good friend, Gene Chin got to see that. And speaking of Gene Chin, so then on the list that they put one of the highlights, I've known Gene for quite a while, not as long as you, but via the Kung Fu Tai Chi magazine connection. So we met him the last day, and we actually went to the Dragon Ball exhibit behind one of the hotels. So they had these life-size characters, totally on brand. And then of course we had to take the requisite selfies. And as you can see, Gene is always representing Kung Fu magazine lanyard with his lanyard. And they allow you to power all the characters from Dragon Ball to Super Saiyan. So Super Saiyan. What was cool is this platform. There's really you can't really see it. There's a bench underneath, just blasting up in the air. So my hair is still pretty slighted, but my hair was like rippling in the air. So we decided to kind of be dorky as always and take a photo. And Gene and I, you can actually see the bottom of my right there. And so Gene did a good job holding that stance. You need to run for the money.
So Curtis, give me 1 second. We're encountering some audio buzz.
Oh, sure.
So I've encountered this before, and oddly enough, the way I have found to fix it is to play a video.
Okay, sure.
So I'm gonna really quickly try that.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
Because I don't know if you're picking up on it, but I think we're getting a little
It's a little reverb.
Yeah. So
you know what? Let me switch to my other mic. Hold on a second.
All right. Well, I'm gonna press play on this. And let's see if our audio is any better. I'm not getting any audio from you. Are you muted?
Testing, can you hear me?
I can hear you, and you sound much better, I think.
Okay, yeah.
So,
I'm using a different mic. Thanks for that.
Excellent. That wasn't planned. That wasn't like a nefarious commercial insult.
Exactly. Yep. There's another. Yeah. You know what it is too. Maybe I think StreamYard had a setting where it said you can get rid of the background noise, and I hit that. I never hit that before, and I don't know if that may have created the buzz, but okay. Well, we're back.
Well, I had another, just as a short tangent, I've been doing other live streams, and I encountered this scenario where someone was presenting their graphic novel, which was based on cicadas, right? It was cicada themed graphic novel. He called it the Cicada Apocalypse.
Uh-huh.
And the buzz kept coming in. So we blamed it on cicadas then, but
Oh,
I would say that it was somebody else's disruptive chi messing with your sound.
great Gene Ching. Good to see you, Gene.
Excellent. Welcome. Thanks for joining us, Gene. What an epic arrival.
Yeah, perfect
Look at that,
timing.
with the visual aids and everything. I
Right?
mean, hold on.
Right?
I have got to get a screen capture of this. This is just too awesome.
Yeah. See, we were talking about his QSAO and his energy, and right on that he showed up. So there you go.
That's awesome. Well, you know, we're here at the Comics Fu Show, standing at the intersection of comics and pop culture, and we've got guests galore, don't we?
Definitely. Good to see you, Gene. Yeah, I was saying Sunday we hung out with Gene, and not all people may have noticed, but the cool thing is Gene actually was in a cool cosplay. He was part of the Hop Wei Tong, right? The gang from Warrior, you know, on HBO on Max, right? You know, the thing based on the Bruce Lee show. Yeah, I noticed it right away. I was like, Gene, that is an awesome cosplay. And then
there can be only one who would notice it, right?
definitely. And then afterwards, we went to a restaurant by the harbor. That was really nice. It was just kind of a nice way to just hang out and kind of relax and have a couple drinks. So yeah, and that was the end of the that concludes my presentation of the con. It was a great con, and it was really a highlight to hang out with Gene afterwards. It was, you know, I was telling Gene, whenever we hang out, it's always at a usually it's at a convention or it's at a tournament, and especially at tournaments, you don't really have time to talk, right? You know how it is, Patrick. You're just running around from place to place, so it was cool to just hang out.
Yeah, and you know what I'm really tickled by is that, you know, I zoomed in and I was like, I wanted to get the kung fu take on Comic-Con, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you just went straight to the top. So I think now would be a good time to kind of let folks who are watching know, you know, who and why of Gene Chang coming from you. I think would be good context for why. I mean, let me finish that sentence. Would be good context. I'll stop it there.
Why Gene's at the intersection of everything we do, right?
Exactly. And why, like, you know, what is it? The kung fu of Comic Cons, right? How it is how it is you guys would end up finding each other, I think is awesome.
No, definitely. So I mean, you know, first and foremost, Gene and I know each other, of course, from the Kung Fu community, but specifically, you know, I've had the pleasure of getting to know Gene because of my connection with him and you to Kung Fu Tai Chi magazine, which I've been doing writing for probably for over, you know, almost a decade now, I'd say. I haven't really counted the years, but it's been a minute, you know. Oh, thanks, Gene. Yeah, Gene's the best. Gene's like built for Comic-Con. Let's just put it that way. Like Gene, if you know Gene, he does rock med for concerts, for things, you know, groups like the Grateful Dead and all those things. He's used to being around a crowd of people and being that calm in the center of the storm. So Comic-Con is no big deal for him. Right?
I mean, he's the weapons master in Man at Arms reality television show all about martial art weapons. I mean, you know, if someone can keep his cool in the forge, right, he's gonna be fun to hang out with at a Comic-Con.
Yeah, if he can handle being on screen with Danny Trejo, he's good, you know. So and just so those of you who don't know, you know, Gene, the publisher of Kung Fu Tai Chi magazine, and now kungfumagazine.com. And so Gene not only is a big fan of the genre, but is also, you know, a disciple of Shaolin, you know, trained at the Shaolin Temple, Kung Fu, you know, writer, martial artist, Sifu, all those things. So, you know, it's a perfect fit. And then there's the whole fandom. Yes, totally. And I remember Gene saying that somebody recognized him on the elevator inside the convention. Somebody yelled at him or something and totally recognized him, which is pretty cool.
All right, isn't that something we all dream about, to be in a space like you know, our chosen space and to be recognized there? That's always a perk.
Definitely. And the cool thing now is, Gene, is, in the Kung Fu comic business, which is as you and I both are also on. And so that's what's so cool is, then Comic-Con just has that whole other level of connectivity. So definitely always a pleasure. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, Comic-Con is ripe for the Kung Fu takeover. It's just like the wave is cresting, I think. But
Definitely. And speaking of Kung Fu and the genre of entertainment, I think we have a special guest waiting in the wings, don't you think? Isn't that the case, Patrick?
yes, indeed. I'm really wishing that we had like a little video intro or a cool graphic that we could play right now. But we'll just have to imagine like massive applause.
Exactly.
Or we could try one of these. Nah, I don't. I want to be experimental with the music, but
Yeah.
I get in trouble when I press buttons, so I'll stop myself.
Well, I'll let you press the button, but I'll give the announcement. Welcoming to the Comics Fu Show for his inaugural appearance, the Wuxia man himself, Mr. Brian Chansey. Brian, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Welcome.
Well, I decided to take this out because you mentioned, an intro. Because, one of the things that a lot of people used to call wuxia back in the day when the Tyson videotapes would say swordplay.
Mm-hmm.
Because probably 90 to 99% of them featured swords. So decided to make my entrance with my non-sharp sword. But yeah, thank you for bringing me here. I've always watched the Comics Fu Show. It's like my brother is responding. Yeah, my brother's birthday's coming up on Friday. So
sorry, that's what's going on is Patrick and I are hitting the button at the same time because we always do this. I'm gonna let Patrick do it, and we're gonna leave that up there. Go for it, Patrick. Take it away.
All right. I thought I did about a minute ago, but I'll do it again. Here it is.
Brandon.
Yes, exactly. Welcome. And you know what we say at the Comics Fu Show, right? Is like, people say that the pen is mightier than the sword, but we say, why not both? So
exactly.
Good call.
Exactly. Well, for those of you that don't know, I'll give a brief introduction to Brian, and he can elaborate. But Brian is a deep entrenched fan, and I would say a historian of the wuxia genre, of martial chivalry, of kung fu movies, of novels, all that stuff. He's also a Tai Chi practitioner, so he's also tied into the whole Chinese martial arts aspect that way. And big fan of all those things. And also Brian now is working with me. We just announced it about a week ago at Fifth Ring Studios, and he's joining the team for the next issue of Shadow Ghost as our marketing specialist and as our wuxia consultant. So that's my introduction to Brian. If I missed anything, let me know.
I think you nailed it pretty well. And since Gene is here, I just want to say when I met Gene, I call him Uncle Gene, by the way. When I met him last year. For the longest time, friends and family were like, "Dude, your knowledge appreciation is very deep. You do something about it." I'm like, there's always someone better than you out there. That was my opinion. But Gene was one of the first people to make me realize that my knowledge goes beyond most people. And I think what led to it was when I showed him the Taiwanese movie where Guan Yu is a kaiju fighting against kaiju aliens. And I also showed him Kung Fu Jesus from Legend of Liquid Sword, where Kung Fu Jesus literally drops down and he tells, I kid you not, his Chinese name means Bat Prince, but the English subtitle says Batman. So he goes like, hallelujah, I'm Jesus, you're a sinner, confess your sins, or else I'll throw Jesus punch. And we just hit off from there,
Definitely. And Brian, when we first met, because Brian had been kind of noticing Shadow Ghost, and so kind of communicating with me and stuff like that. And then once the campaign was complete, we said, hey, let's meet up and talk. And he showed me a clip of General Quan fighting kaiju, and I was like, it was like an introduction and a drop the mic simultaneously. I've never been that in awe of somebody's understanding of the genre. I've never seen anything like that. So hats off to Brian on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And
It-
Patrick, you two have been communicating for some time, right?
yeah. I mean, we've definitely come across shared discords, just like, trying to catch up. I mean, the thing that's really been fascinating for me, right, as I've been, kind of, right, working for Kung Fu Magazine over the years, I've kind of always been tracking like the ebb and flow of like the popularity of martial arts within, popular culture, in general, right? And right now we're at one of those points where things are cresting, and it's so much so now where it's not just about like a generic term like kung fu movies, right? Like, or more so, let me put it another way, right? There was once a time when Marvel and DC had the exclusive rights to the term superhero. But the term superhero has gotten so broad, it's now like a genre. It's a general term, right? So it's kind of owned by everyone. And so it seems as though currently kung fu and martial arts, but kind of specifically the Chinese martial arts, have grown in enough popularity that people are recognizing the specificity of the genre of wuxia. And so all of a sudden now, where people would just think of like, martial arts, Keanu Reeves learning kung fu for the Matrix, right? I know kung fu now. And that was like the catch-all. But now we've gone beyond that, where people can really recognize the subtle differences that makes knowledge, the wealth of knowledge the wuxia man has. Like all of a sudden, people understand it. They can kind of grab onto the concept of the why, the who and the why of someone like Guan Yu, and then the bigness of him taking on a kaiju, which I haven't seen that one. I'll have to get that on the playlist immediately.
Yeah, it'll blow you away. It's insane. I think that's you hit the nail on the head there, Patrick. And I think Brian has a really interesting history with it, because the interesting thing, right, is in the case of all three of us, right, we are kind of guests to the culture, or we kind of came upon it. It's not something that came necessarily easy to any three of us per se, or as part of our say genetic makeup, right? We're kind of it's our adopted culture, right? So but Brian has a unique origin story. Maybe you could tell everybody a little bit about how you came into the genre and how you came to appreciate it and all that.
Right. So some people have said I was born into the genre, which I guess is not wrong if you look at the circumstances. But so my aunt owned a video store. She opened it like 2 years prior to my birth, so I guess I was born into it. And back in the late 80s, 90s, early 2000s, a lot of Asian communities, if you want to watch different TV shows, movies, you had to rent these video cassettes. And sometimes these TV series, they had like 20 volumes of video cassettes. So growing up, I actually had easy access to all this. I actually grew up watching Donnie Yen way before Donnie Yen became popular with Ip Man. I actually saw The Kung Fu Master and Fist of Fury on video cassette way before everyone else did. And I was exposed to. I was like, oh, this is so cool! Like all these videotapes, and as I got older, I started noticing, like, wait a minute, some of these titles are like based on, they have the same story. And then I found, oh, these are based on the same novel. So then when the internet came by, dial-up internet, if you do remember dial-up internet, as a kid, I was like, oh, okay, let me type up things like tvb.com, Tai Sang and such, and I started doing a deep dive, and I was like, oh, so this genre actually, it started with literature and opera, and then later on led to film, TV, and comics, obviously. And from there, I was like, okay, let me seek out other mediums like books, video games. That's why I originally called myself the Wuxia Man, because true story, I was actually signing up for PlayStation Network. I was like, okay, I need to come up with a user ID where it's uniquely me, but I'm not going to forget it. So I was like, okay, well, I like wuxia. I'm a man, so I just put it together. And surprisingly, nobody took it. Like nobody took it on PlayStation Network, on Nintendo, various different platforms. So the name just kind of stuck, and I just kept on pressing on with exploring the genre. And My life is very strange, where I seem to get all these coincidences where wuxia just kind of comes to me naturally. For example, this drink is this is based on the Jin Young novel Deer in the Cauldron, which was adapted into Stephen Chow's Royal Tramp. And in fact, I actually gave this gift to Sifu Fujita when we first met. I was like, oh, I don't want to give you any old tea. I want to give you something that's a deep cut. And this tea is it's made by a restaurant that's local here in Orange County. So that's my life in a nutshell. Exposure to wuxia because of a video store, got the internet and started doing deep dives, and here I am.
Nice. Well, in the chat, Chad Kripa says, "What's up, Chad? How's it going? We haven't seen each other in a long time." So, Chad, or when I first met him, Chad is the son of Kamel Kripa. Kamel Kripa is Jean-Claude Van Damme's friend and personal trainer from all the way back in Belgium, and I've known Chad for a very, 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 very long time. So it's good to see you, Chad. Hopefully, we get the chance to meet up. I just saw your dad last weekend. We used to hang out in Hollywood and do stuff together. So that's awesome. No, that's great. Wuxia still. I mean, we were talking about it because we know what it is, but maybe you could give your definition of what wuxia is, so that the people watching can kind of get a better idea of what that term means.
Oh yeah, sure, absolutely. So, wu literally means martial, like martial arts. Xia is chivalry, or you could say hero. So, literally, it's like martial chivalry, martial hero. But for me, one of the biggest differences between, for example, you watch a wuxia film versus, let's say, a kung fu film with bolo. Let's say you watch a bolo kung fu film versus watching one-armed swordsman. Probably one of the biggest differences is that the wuxia genre is more layered. I would say it's a multi-layered martial arts genre, where it's not just fighting, but you also see them undertaking steps to get to where they are. For example, it's not just, I'm going to learn this mysterious kung fu. In the case of one-armed swordsman, Jimmy Wang Yu loses his arm, falls off, gets rescued by a girl, and the girl, she has like a manual where he learns the techniques with the broken blade. But also, I guess another thing a lot of people like to see, a lot of people notice that there is a lot more sword fighting in the wuxia genre. You see it in kung fu, but generally speaking, you see that more often in wuxia. And probably the biggest difference is you see the cultivation of qi, where people develop their qi. I'd say that's probably the biggest difference. I'd say it's a multi-layered martial arts genre. Because for me personally, if you translate literally, some people are like, "Oh, so that means it's the same as those bolo movies, those movies with Chen Kun Tai." Well, Chen Kun Tai has been in wuxia films, but you're not gonna mistake Chinese Hercules with bolo for one-armed swordsman. Usually those kung fu movies, I'm not trying to bag on them. I enjoy them too, but generally speaking, wuxia is more multi-layered in terms of the hero's journey.
Definitely. And Chad just said, to me, said, "I'll let you know next time out that way, sir. Love seeing everything you're doing. Keep creating with passion." Thanks, Chad. So good to hear from you. And yeah, it'd be great to meet up and catch up. No, definitely. I think. Oh, sorry, Patrick. I think you're muted. There you are. Oh, you're back. There you are.
Oh, all right. Wrong button. But we'll have to have Chad on at some point, because we've been having a whole cavalcade of kung fu and martial guests showing up tonight. That's
definitely
such a great time.
Definitely, absolutely. Brian and Patrick too. But would you say wuxia is it something that's normally relegated to something in the past, or do you feel that wuxia, because sometimes I kind of draw the line, not always, but it's more the contemporary things, which are more like street level, more quote unquote realistic,
Right.
would not be categorized within wuxia? And not that it's a hard fast rule, but a lot of times wuxia harkens back to a bygone era. I think just by virtue of the chivalry and that kind of idealism, oftentimes it harkens back to that. Would you say that's the case, or what are your guys' thoughts on that?
I mean, the fact still remains the majority of wuxia takes place in Qing Dynasty or before.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's always exceptions. Speaking of one-armed swordsman, there was a 1994 remake of the one-armed swordsman called New Unarmed Swordsman or What Price Survival. I'm not sure if you two saw that, but it had a pretty good cast. This came out before Choi Hark's The Blade. So in the remake of the One Armed Swordsman in 1994, it takes place in like 1930s, 1940s China, and there's no guns. There's like no guns whatsoever, and people still believe in chivalry. People duke it out with swords still.
Nice.
But then, of course, you have things like The Blood Sword, which was a comic by.
That's true.
And in that, you see people, you see elements of wuxia in there. So I think for the most part, it usually does take place in period time, but generally you don't really see it in modern days. I mean, there are a few exceptions that I can name off the top of my head. Dragon Tiger Gate. That was a comic that became the movie Donnie Yen. And then there's even a Korean movie called Arahan, where it starts off like a normal contemporary comedy movie, but then the guy discovers that people have been secretly cultivating their chi and kind of hiding in secret. And then the main bad guy, he's like laid in dormant, kind of like the Iceman comic with Yunbyo.
Nice.
And then he gets unleashed, and then it turns out that the guy has to cultivate his chi to stop the villain with his love interest. So I'd say generally it's more in the past because of the fact that that because if you do it now, some people will say, well, what if someone grabs an AK-47 and starts blasting? I have seen that argument before on forums. It's like, what if someone just shoots a missile at the Wudang sect? And it's like, well, you kind of got a point there.
Yeah.
But then there are some wuxia comics that do take place in modern days where they're kind of hidden, and then when they finally reveal themselves, they're like so overpowered. I'd say overpowered because they're able to like destroy buildings just like that, and then in turn destroy guns. Storm Riders had a modern comic version that came out like 20 years ago.
That's right.
But it was never translated in English.
I mean, I think there's still room to really define like some of the tropes. Like I think because there's so many new because the genre is so new for amongst Western audiences, I guess I should say, right? That it's still being looked at in broad strokes. So I'm thinking it would be a cool moment to really kind of like block out how wuxia fits in with some of the more broader concepts of that we kind of touched on with just saying kung fu movies, but maybe epic fantasy, right? Lord of the Rings style epic fantasy on one end of a spectrum, and then Street Fighter on the other end of the spectrum.
Right. My friend actually, I was talking with my friend. By the way, he's of German American descent. He was trying to make a comparison with wuxia and anything that's popular in the West, and we finally narrowed it down to Dungeons and Dragons. Because a lot of in Dungeons and Dragons, you have paladins who don't necessarily serve a lord. Because when you look at Jidaigeki, look at the samurai, usually they serve a lord, or else they're ronin, obviously. But ronin, as in they're masterless samurai. But when I described to him, no, usually these swordsmen, they don't serve a lord. I mean, they could belong to a sect. It's possible, like, oh, I belong to Wudang or Wu-Tang, but you don't necessarily serve a lord. That's just your teacher that you pay respect to. He's kind of like your father. It's not like, oh, I can only stay with this person forever. This is my lord. It's serving my lord until the death. And then, because for the longest time, people would say, oh, so is it like is it kind of like Jidaigeki, the Japanese samurai stories? Is it kind of like sword and sorcery? Which it does make sense. But I think the big difference is the fact that the swordsmen, the fighters in wuxia, they generally don't serve a lord. And that's when he's like, it sounds more like Dungeons and Dragons in that case.
That's a good point. And I think the other thing too is I always feel it harkens back to folk heroes and folk stories. With the level of exaggeration of the action, it's kind of like in America we talk, oh, Paul Bunyan, and that kind of thing. Chop down this tree, or Hercules stopped this thing with the river. It's like a tall tale, and you have to kind of give yourself willingly to that. or you can't really get the genre. You have to believe that the guy can, jump over a building or stand on the top of a tree, or those kind of things to enjoy it. So who would you say are some of the more prominent, as far as the writing, the authors? Who would you say are some of the more prominent authors in the genre of wuxia?
I mean, obviously, Jin Yong is the most prominent. You not just Chinese people. You ask anybody that grew up in Asia, Southeast Asia, and East Asia. If you bring up the genre, then the number one person I'm going to bring up is definitely Jin Yong. In fact, my girlfriend, she's Vietnamese. She knows all like the Jin Yong stories. She knows the title. She doesn't know it, deeply, but she knows the title. She knows Condor Heroes. It's like, yeah, how could you? If you say you like wuxia, it's almost impossible to say, oh, who's Jin Yong, who's Condor Heroes. It's almost like a comic book fan saying, who's Stanley.
Yeah.
Yeah, most people would be scratching their heads like, okay, that's very interesting. For me, I personally like Gulong. Gulong is actually, I have it right here in my library. Gulong's only novel translated in English is 11th Son.
Oh, nice.
Which was adapted to a couple of Shaw Brothers movies, Swordsman and Enchantress with Dilong. That's probably the most prominent one. But I like Gulong. He's considered to be the second best wuxia novelist. He's different from the others in the sense that, interesting fact, in Taiwan, they're kind of doing some censorship in regards to stories that might talk about government uprising against the government. So Gulong decided to skirt around this because originally his novels were very, historical based, kind of like Jin Yong. So what he did was, and this totally worked in his favor when he wrote movies for film studios and then developed his own film studio. He decided to include a lot of mystery because he was influenced by Ian Fleming's James Bond.
Oh, really?
He had a lot of mystery, and also, best of all, lots of sex and lots of sex and violence in his novels. I'll keep it PG-13, but one of the most obvious things is the fact that there's just a lot of sex in some of his novels, and in turn, that would make his scripts very easy to sell to movie producers back in, especially in the 70s and early 80s. Because if you ever watch the Shaw Brothers movies, they're adapted from Gulong novels, Plans of Intrigue, Killer Clans. There's a lot of sex, and usually when you see a lot of nudity, you can almost be rest assured it was based on a novel or written by Gulong. In fact, there was one called Bloody Parrots, which I'm not going to go in details, but I was like, wow, this has Gulong written all over the movie. But I'd say those two are definitely the most prominent one. Third is a novelist called.
Oh, I think you kind of froze on us, Brian. Hold on a second. There we are. You're back. Third most.
Yeah, third is Liang Yushen. He's the one who wrote Bride with White Hair.
Oh,
and also he wrote Seven Swords. A lot of people don't know, but Seven Swords takes place right after Bride with White Hair.
Oh, really? I didn't know they're tied together.
Oh, yeah. So the Bride with White Hair, the main character, played by Leslie Jung, and also Bridget Lynn's character, they actually live, and they hold a grudge against one another. And then they kind of developed their own, I guess, sect where they have their own students. And then these students would eventually meet, like maybe like 20, 30 years down the line. There's romance that ensues amongst other things. But yeah, a lot of people don't know Seven Swords takes place after Bride with White Hair.
See, that's why he's called the wuxia man, right? See? That's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, one thing while I have you here, I have one question that I think would be interesting to explore. Like, I'd like to think about, like, for me, I'm always focused on like some of the more mythological components to things, right? How the stuff connects to oral history, etc. But with that is like the presence of like historic characters who have made their way, who have achieved wuxia status, right? Like, the first one that comes to mind would be, right, Bodhidharma, Shaolin Temple, the whole presence of Shaolin Temple as like a place within the genre. But I'm sure that's only just the tip of the iceberg. So I was wondering if you could
You
Throw
know,
out a few other tidbits.
it's funny you mentioned Bodhidharma. I think I've mentioned this to Sifu Fujita, but there's a 1994 wuxia film called Master of Zen. I'm not sure you're familiar with it, but it features Bodhidharma portrayed by Derek Yee, who was a popular Shaw Brothers actor back in the late 70s, early 80s. It's about Bodhidharma going from India to the Shaolin Temple. And it features him doing incredible feats such as jumping on the river, shooting energy blasts when he's in India, amongst numerous other things. Also, the actor from Story of Ricky, Louis Bad, he's also in it as well. He plays the most famous monk who begged to be Bodhidharma's disciple, and Bodhidharma's like, if you can make the snow red, I'll take you as my disciple. So because in the movie he used to be like a general who killed lots of people. So he severed his arm and then held up the arm and made the snow red. And it was like, hey, can I be your student now? And Bodhidharma was like, okay, you did make red. But you mentioned Bodhidharma, but yeah, that's a movie that a lot of people weren't I guess it's not that popular. It features all these Hong Kong actors who are portraying Indian characters for like the first quarter of the movie. And it's so funny because I'm like, oh my gosh, I know all these actors. Like they appeared in so many movies from Shaw Brothers and Golden Harvest back in the 80s, and here they are dressing as Indian characters, and they're speaking, only Cantonese. But going back, the historical characters in wuxia, it happens all the time. I think what's cool about wuxia is that usually when they feature historical characters interacting with the fictional characters, they make sure that it's done in a way that does not mess up with history. For example, when you watch Heaven Sword and Dragon Saber, the Ming sect is from Persia. You probably remember C4G. I know you like Heaven Sword and Dragon Saber, but they're from Persia, and you would think, oh, what the heck? I don't recall the founder of the Ming dynasty being from Persia, but then they do it in a way where if you watch it or read it till the very end, the leader of the Ming sect, Zheng Wuji, is like, no, I don't want to continue being the leader. I don't want to be emperor of China. Now I'm going to give it to my General Zhu to take care of it. And then there you go. But one of the things I really love is the fact that it's just so cool to have these historical characters that I learned a lot of history from. Like for watching these things, they have all these historical characters, but they do it in a way. They interact with fictional characters in a way that's really respectful to the history. I mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure some of these characters didn't leap like 20 feet into the air and shoot energy blasts. But besides that, hey man, if it's like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, when that came out,
yeah,
like that's not really offensive. I think that's pretty cool actually. Abraham Lincoln hunted vampires, but yeah, wuxia, like I guess that's another thing that makes wuxia stand out from others, that they have these historical characters where they interact with fictional characters. It's like you combine martial arts with historical fiction, and then they put it in a way that's respectful to both to history and the fictional characters. It doesn't contradict what happens in history.
Definitely. And Condor Heroes had Genghis Khan, right? There was Khan's like, there was a whole thing about the Mongolian thing. So no, definitely. I think that's what's great about it, is the world building. There's all this world building, but it's built on top of real world history. So there's just this depth, just so much depth to it. It's so enjoyable. Yeah, definitely. Very cool. Yeah. But yeah, no, that's amazing. Now, in regards to comic books and things like that, right? We were talking just recently about wuxia and comic books and things like that. Would you say Blood Sword is probably one of your top ones, or?
Oh yeah. In fact, I have still got this.
Oh, good.
And also still got my VCDs of the Hong Kong series from 1990.
Nice. VCDs. I haven't seen that format in a minute.
Yeah, these so a lot of these TV shows and movies, they're on YouTube officially, remastered, which you think is great until you watch them and audio is cut out or certain scenes are censored, because it's no secret amongst us, but for those who don't know, a lot of these movies and TV shows borrow copyrighted music from other things. So there's one wuxia series called Legend of Fu Hong's. So yeah, that's based on the same novel as A Warrior's Tragedy, and what's that Shaw Brothers movie with D-Long? The Magic Blade. So it's based on the same novel as The Magic Blade and A Warrior's Tragedy. And if you watch the series, there's music playing from Tim Burton's Batman. It's music playing from the scene where Batman is chasing the Joker at Axis Chemicals.
Uh-huh.
So when I watch on YouTube and the song is cut out, it's like oh, there's like no audio, but also I think that's what made it kind of charming to me was the fact that you would hear this random music being brought into these random shows. Is like, oh, okay, I had no idea Batman's chasing the same villain as the main character from the Magic Blade. But yeah, going back, the Blood Sword is definitely probably my most favorite. That was the one I saw the first as a kid.
Yeah.
I saw that on VHS, the video cassettes at my aunt's store. I was like, oh, what is this? It says Blood Sword. You know, it had all these like characters look really extravagant, almost outrageous. And as a kid, it's like you can't help but judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is this? I want to watch this. So I watched it, and I was like, wow, this is like a whole new world because you see cars, you see guns, but then you see the main character still doing things you see in the period wuxia stuff. Mm-hmm. And then I saw the movie A Man Called Hero, and then that's when I discovered, it's based on a comic book.
Yeah. And
then that's when I started getting to the comics, the wuxia comics.
That's great. Yeah, I still love A Man Called Hero. I think that was so well done. You know, I think we were talking. Somebody made a video essay, kind of knocking it, saying it was kind of tacky. I still think it's awesome. I think that's one of the better ones out there. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, I guess at the time it came out because there were some. Oh,
what you got there? Nice.
Oh, I think you're
muted, Patrick. I'll unmute you. I unmute. Oh, sorry. That was me. I'll do it again. Unmute. I think you need to do it. Sorry, Patrick. Okay, let me see. Can't unmute your guests because they chose to mute themselves. Mm-hmm. There he is.
I'm back.
You're back.
But yes, very cool. I have a couple of more.
Nice.
That one.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice.
Wow.
Oh, those covers.
It's like we're the same person in the multiverse. You know?
There we go. Look at that.
We do the multiverse. My brother's saying A Man Called Hero was awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, we watched that together as kids. In fact, when we watched it, this is when Tai Seng was splitting movies to 2 tapes. I don't know if you recall that, but they used to split movies to 2 tapes. So I asked my aunt, I was like, why are they doing this?
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, they just want more money. Because at the time, when she owned a video store, she told me that Tai Seng would charge her per videotape, not per title. So let's say, for example, in this case, A Man Called Hero, like each tape was like $20.
Uh-huh.
So instead of paying $20 for A Man Called Hero, she would pay $40 for 2 tapes of A Man Called Hero. And it gets even more ridiculous with the TV shows, like, for example, Donnie Yen's Fist of Fury. I think it was like 15, 20 videotapes. So that means she would have had to pay $20 per tape. So 20 times 15. So you can imagine how much money she had to spend on those videotapes. So because it's very different from, I'm assuming, how your mainstream American video rental store would bring in titles, because I think they would pay per title. As opposed to paying per cassette. But in her case, it was per cassette.
And just so those watching know, when Brian refers to Tai Seng, so Tai Seng was the distribution company for, I would say, was it all of North America probably, right? Or even maybe elsewhere?
North America, it was mainly United States, and they did open a branch in the UK, but that closed down real fast.
Okay, yeah. And you could. I mean, I used to drive into the valley from where I live, so it was like a 40-minute drive to get Hong Kong movies at this place called China Pal, right? And I was always the weirdo, like, why is this non-Chinese guy coming in? And I always get the Tai Seng video cassettes and just like Brian's saying, they'd be in like the clamshell, the thick case.
Yeah.
And there would always be a commercial for Le Comque sauce at the beginning,
Yes.
at least for the bulk of it.
Vita soy as well. Sometimes you see Vita soy.
Yeah.
In fact, let me pull something.
Yeah, sure. So when he says all those things, it's like that's not the average American view of what their high school experience is. But I definitely recall that as part of my high school experiences, seeing all those.
So these are the TV that I still keep as like my treasure from my aunt's store.
Let's see.
So, yeah, I don't have a VCR, but well, I guess I need to rewind this. But I still got these.
That's great.
Be kind, rewind.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? My aunt never charged people to rewind the video cassettes.
Oh, really?
And, let me tell you a funny story. One of my aunt, she's the sister of my father. So I have an uncle that married to my family, and this uncle owned a video store as well with same type of movies and TV shows. And the funny thing is, he would charge people if they would not rewind the cassettes. And because of that, supposedly because of that, they went to my aunt's video store, and then he went out of business.
Oh my gosh!
And what he did with his tapes was he just gave it to her. It was like, hey, do you want here's some extra tapes because you put me out of business. I don't know how true this is, but that's what I was told by a cousin, and I was like, oh, okay, that's
wow. And
then this uncle eventually married my father's sister.
Wow, that is fascinating.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things of that era of the movies was, especially from Hong Kong, because again, video cassettes, right? So if it was actually from Tai Sing, usually the quality would be decent, but still, it's video cassettes. They have these white subtitles for the movies from Hong Kong, right? Mm-hmm. And the white subtitles, they didn't have any black outline. They'd just be solid white, really thin, letters. And there would always be a scene where they're about to drop some really important exposition, and somebody wearing a white lab coat will walk in front of a white building as a white van goes behind in the background, and you'd miss what they're saying. And that was always the thing that used to bust me up laughing. It was just those darn white subtitles. And the subtitles were hilarious because I think usually people would be subtitling like the night before it got released or something like that. So the quality of the translation was very different. Let's just put it that way, right?
I have a friend whose dad, like 30 years ago, he used to review Hong Kong movies, Category 3 movies, to ensure that it got rated accordingly. And she told me that, and I was like, what the heck? That sounds like... I mean, they don't make movies like that nowadays, but I was like, wow, I would never be bored if I got paid to review Story of Ricky.
Patrick or Ryan, maybe explain to the audience what's a Category 3 movie.
Oh yeah, sure, absolutely.
Where that fits within the.
Sure. So Hong Kong has rating systems just like the United States, of course. Category 1 means it's safe for kids. Like something along the lines of Doraemon, the Japanese anime, that would be Category 1 because it's safe for kids. And then there's Category 2A, which is like a PG-13. So basically, like your Jackie Chan movies, that would be like Category 2A. PG-13 like. Category 2B, that's where it's like rated R. So think John Woo films. Category 3 is where it's almost like NC-17, where you would see movies like The Story of Ricky, where people would rip out their intestines. And also there would be movies like Chinese Torture Chamber Story with graphic sex scenes that involves flying. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. And I remember the logo was like a triangle, but it was a red triangle. Did it have like the number 3 or it had something?
That's right. That's right. I actually had a shirt that had Category 3 on it, but I misplaced it. But it wouldn't fit me anyways because I kind of got a little heavier. But I got a funny story. I had a Category 3 shirt from this shop. I don't think they do business anymore, but I ordered it and I wore it to my aunt's video store. And I was like maybe 20 years old. I kid you not, 20, 21. And I wore it to her store. And she was like, you know what that is, right? And I'm like, yeah. It's that title right over there. It's like that title right over there. That the VHS that no one's touching because, you still have a lot of video cassettes. Oh, boy. I was like, oh, man, if only I could, like, record her reaction. Because her was like, oh, what has happened to my nephew who's proudly displaying category 3 on his shirt?
Oh, that's so funny.
And then when I would meet up with Chinese friends and classmates, they would look at the shirt and be like, dude, you know what that means, right? You know, whether they're from Hong Kong, mainland China, Taiwan, doesn't matter. They all know what it is. They're like, hey, you know what that is, right? I'm like, yeah, I'm very well aware. That's why I'm wearing it.
Well, it looked cool. It looked like a cool design, even if you didn't know what it was. It was
Yeah.
really iconic, right? So,
It sounds like a potential T-shirt to be reissued as part of a comics food store someday. You know?
yeah, totally. Yeah, no, that's great. Very good. Well, I think we're about to hit we're a little over the hour mark. You guys want to start to wind it down? Was there any other questions that you had, Patrick, or anything else you
I
wanted?
mean, we've dropped
We could
so
go
much
forever.
knowledge, and people love it. I mean, clearly, we still have so many viewers joining us
Right?
this evening, which is so fantastic. So, big shout out to everyone who's taking some time out to hang out with us while we get into the minutia of something that we all love, right? Wuxia, and it goes beyond that. So, yeah, I mean, we can go on. We should just really set up another time, because really, like, just busting out the covers like this is not enough, right? We should have like a nice graphic loading around to the left while we talk about these things. At least until we have the immersive Wuxia museum set up somewhere sometimes. So just putting it out there,
Yeah, maybe we should have like a graphic like that comes up that's like Wuxia Man recommends, and he can give one of his movie picks, and we can do that too. I think that'd be fun.
Oh yeah, and
I mean, I could just see so many like comic cover logo treatments for Wuxia Man, like, so we could come up with a new one each month, and then just have that be part of a I don't know, our movie reviews.
Definitely. Well, if I can add something, like I said, Brian recently, joined Fifth Ring Studios, my comic book company, and we're working on stuff for Shadow Ghost and things like that. And the really great thing is, and hats off to Brian, is already it's an absolute pleasure working with him, having him on the team. And the fun thing is we can give each other almost any weird kung fu reference in regards to what we're going to do, and we totally get it. And so that's kind of a fun. My hats off to you, Brian, because that's a very rare thing. So definitely I appreciate that. And nobody sends kung fu animated gifts like this man right here. He's got that down.
Oh, I love sending gifts. I'll tell you this. A couple things I do want to mention. First, I want to shout out to Clayton Watts. I'm not sure he's watching right now, but he designed this shirt that's available for sale at 36 Styles. He was one of the people who started following Shadow Ghost after they joined on board. So awesome shirt. It's not kung fu, but it's still martial arts and it's comics. So awesome shirt, great shirt.
There you go.
And one other thing is, one other interesting tip I want to tell you is my aunt was very concerned about my future when I was a kid. She was like, my nephew keeps watching all these movies. She was like, how's he ever going to use this for his job, for his career, for his future? But I'm so glad that I'm able to send these gifts and make these references with, not just you, Sifu Fujita, but also, even Patrick and all people. It's like, it's so cool to meet other fans and just be a fan at heart, because I think at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're spreading what we love as fans first and foremost, and then professionals. Because we're all professionals, but I think first and foremost, the reason why I got into this is because we're fans at heart, and when fans meet other fans, it clicks real fast. So just want to say thank you for that.
No, absolutely. And the same with Patrick. Patrick is also like, I think all three of us are like right here, and Gene, if he's watching as well, right? Everybody's on that same wavelength, so that it's great to be on board with everybody.
And there's more of us, right? We're growing, as evidenced by folks who are still watching.
Yeah.
But as we close, I want to remind folks that I want to drop a little. I want to press this button, right, and remind folks that copies of my children's book Lucy Veloso are available. I've also added some new perks that include some of my graphic design consultations and some of my deadline work. So for folks who, have a looming project and they need help, I might be able to do that for them. And I have a special video that I've hidden for our closing, our post-credit thing that we like to do. So I've got a fun little behind-the-scenes videos for those folks who want to, stick around for after the credits to see a piece of art get made digitally.
Definitely. And I'll just remind everybody, as far as on my end, check out tigercrane.net. That's where I have my online Kung Fu and Tai Chi school. You can learn Kung Fu anywhere in the world as long as you have an internet connection. So check that out. And then also, if you want to see what Brian and I are currently working on, go to theshadowghost.com. We have a lot of cool stuff going on. And just real quick, I'll just show this to everybody. We also have books available in digital format. So if you go to the store here, you can go ahead and check this out. And we have first issue in digital, the sketchbook, and we also have a lot of merch. So you can check all that out.
That's so awesome. And somehow we lost Kurtis in that.
He became the real Shadow Ghost. That's what happened.
Yes, in a heartbeat. I'm sure he'll be back, but he's not. So, oh, here he is.
I'm sorry.
He really is a Shadow Ghost.
It's
You're the real Shadow Ghost. That's why he keep disappearing. Wow.
The power of the energy from the website and the chi was just so strong. It just dropped out my system. I'm so sorry about that, but that's what happens when you have so much kung fu and so much comic books going on. So I apologize for that.
You're the real Shadow Ghost.
It was glorious.
Live TV. All right. Well, I said my piece.
So I'm personally excited to see what's next in store for the Shadow Ghost and for, just to be a witness to this epic team up between the two of you folks. So huge congratulations, for making such power moves at just the right time. It's an exciting season to be doing these things.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And you can follow us on all our social media, but also Brian has his own personal social media. Where can people follow you directly, Brian?
Well, I'm most active on Instagram, Wuxia Man, just spelled just like that.
Okay.
Yeah, probably best to find me on Instagram. I'm most active there. Yeah, that's about it though. Follow me there. I post all things wuxia. Sometimes I post pro wrestling stuff because I also like pro wrestling. And I also do love my tokusatsu, my kaiju stuff. So you might see some stuff related to that as well. But feel free to contact me, connect with me.
Great. Excellent. Well, I guess without further ado, Patrick, anything else to add?
Stay tuned for some special features at the end, right after our closing bumpers. And then also for those folks who want to participate in a few other live streams that I'm hosting, right? I am doing live streams for another community of comic book graphic novelists called Kids Comics Unite. And we'll be having 2 more live streams with other graphic novelists on August. I don't have my dates. How bad? August 22nd, and there's another one on the 17th, I believe. But check my social media for details. But thanks again for all of the support, and thank you for being a part of this fun episode.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks, Brian. All right, catch all you later.
Bye.
Everyone, welcome to the Comics Fu Show.
I'm your co-host Patrick Lugo, and with me is co-host Kurtis Fujita.